let me come back to my formal duty of welcoming Dr. Devesh Vijay. Uh, Dr. Devesh is a historian by profession. He has been working on uh, lots of themes, particularly on what is called poverties. Remember, not on poverty, poverties.
Hello, friends, and thank you for a very kind introduction, and thanks to all present. See, the term poverty has several references. Um, Relative and absolute poverty, third world poverty is totally different from developed world, rich countries' poverty. That's about, in USA, for example, $13 a day roughly is the mark below which you are counted as poor, eligible for benefits. Actually, they do it family wise and annual, $22,000 per family. So roughly it comes to, in India, we have something 47 rupees right now for urban population as per the latest revised line, which is roughly $1.25 in PPP terms. That is the contrast between first world and third world poverty counts. Going by this $1.25, which is the new revised line adopted by World Bank and UNO, there are about 1.1 billion, that is 17% of the world's population is poor by this criterion. Half of these poor are in South Asia. The another lot is in sub-Saharan Africa, but and one third were in India in 2011. Now maybe a situation is slightly better. We have been, because we were for a long time confronted with this problem of starvation, so we linked our poverty line to calorie intake alone initially when this line was decided upon in the 70s, Dandekar and Rath. At that time, the poverty line for urban areas was urban was 20 rupees and rural was 15 rupees. That is 50 paise per day. And today it is 32 rupees per day for rural and 47 for urban. So what has been done across revisions in each decade, Lakrawala, then we had Tendulkar committee report on poverty line, then Rangarajan latest. They have tweaked the poverty line, not just adjusting it to the inflation level, but also including progressively, along with calories. First they included proteins and nutrients, then they said no, something for education and health also, expenditure should be included in the basic essentials that were being counted. So that's how the real poverty line, not ignoring the adjustments to inflation, has also moved up a bit. And if we go by the Dandekar and Rath line of set in the 70s, not 30% but about 15% of Indians will be BPL. And this matches with a very major survey done by Applied Manpower Research, Santosh Mehrotra Committee Report 2009. They also found by the income criterion, not consumption criterion which NSS applies, they also found around 15% as the BPL population. Now, so there has been some improvement obviously in terms of just people coming out of starvation, but as Drees and Sen and have been repeatedly pointing out, these slight improvements are very meager, and just many families remain one illness away from poverty. This is the phrase, very meaningful phrase used, and they remain thereby in that vulnerable section, which covers about 66% of the population as per Sen Gupta report of 2004-5, I think. And also in contrast to the East Asian achievement, just consider Malaysia has less than 10% people below poverty line of $1.25. So this is a very, very meager achievement, nothing to celebrate about. But yes, unlike what some people thought at the launch of economic liberalization in 1991, that it will worsen, as Amit Bhaduri was saying, predatory growth, Utsa Patnaik's book, Republic of Hunger, that expectation that liberalization will worsen the situation, it didn't come about. There has been some slight improvement that reflects in my data also. But the latest innovation in the poverty count has been the socio-economic caste census, whose report has just come out. This was launched in 2011 and 2013 I think they started actually working, and this has some very good features as I was looking at their website. First of all, every family's data is there on their website. This is a huge innovation. NSS was so reluctant to share their unit level data. I tried my best to see how does their family, detailed chart of questions, about 300 questions they ask. They are using 3 stages for counting the poor. First of all, they exclude some by some criteria, like if you have a 4-wheeler, you will not be counted automatically. If you have 3 rooms pakka, then you will not be counted. If you have a government job, you will not be counted. So there is one exclusion process. Then there is an automatic inclusion process. If you are primitive tribal, then you are automatically counted as poor. If you are living on alms or by begging, then you are counted. If you do not have any roof, homeless are automatically counted. So these are the 2 initial stages, and then for the rest of the population, they have a 7-point criterion. You will score 1 mark if you have, for example, SC/ST. You will score 1 mark if you are a casual laborer or involved in manual scavenging, and then they have left it to the states to decide how many of these scores will enable somebody to be counted as poor. Now I come to the poverty data from my field. First of all, I will come to the income count. This took a lot of time, and yet I will not say it is very reliable. In 500 income brackets, I have counted the number of families caste wise that come, and about 14% in both the slum and the village are in the BPL category in this 2014 count, that is by rupees 32 in the rural area per day and 47 in Delhi. Now apart from that, in both the locations there are 1%, 2% families who are earning more than 8,000, more than 10,000 per capita per month. These are monthly figures. This is the Radhak Nagar data, and I must highlight that the poverty count by this survey is slightly lower than what is shown in the NSS data. For Delhi, for example, NSS data last is showing about 8% below poverty line. Mine is showing 14%. 8% for Delhi should mean at least 24% in the slum, because about 1/4 population is in slum, and all the poor should be concentrated there apart from the homeless. About 1 lakh homeless we have in Delhi. So this is slightly less than the NSS count, and there are some economists like Surjit Bhalla who have been very emphatic. Santosh Mehrotra also agrees with this, that probably NSS data is undercounting consumption. People do underreport consumption. This is suggested by my analysis also. But leave aside income count, it is a very difficult thing to know people's incomes, and there is very stark visible evidence of improvements in terms of income and assets. This is the type of housing. The upper photographs are from 1988 when I first went to these communities, and the lower ones are the recent 2013 or 14. Look at the condition of housing. That has largely changed, and which is very clear indication of some improvement in assets and incomes. I have also done some count of television sets in the entire village caste wise, cars, tractors and so on. For Radhak Nagar, the number of two-wheelers is a good example of an improvement in families' economic position. In 1989, I found only 4 two-wheelers in the slum, and today there are about 50. In fact, the photograph, and this top photograph shows an air conditioner. just last year, there are about 4 air conditioners in the slum, and this is a photograph of one of that. This is a major change. Similarly, in Dhantala, number of two-wheelers, cars, they have improved, and Dalits also, very small minority. Most Dalits remain very poor, but there is a small minority among Dalits also, those who have been pradhans, or there is a reservation for Dalits in Pradhani also, or have government jobs. They come in that better off segment. Another very important factor behind slight improvement in the economic position is the rise in real wage. When I went in 1988 for unskilled work, the wage in the village was rupees 20, in the slum was rupees 25. Today these wages are 350 and 250 roughly. So this is 12 times rise. Over the same 25-year period, the wholesale price index, for example, has risen about 6 times. So there is a doubling of real wage. This is a very important. Why did this happen? I will come to this. Why real wage rose? I will reflect on this in a while. But before that, I must say again that despite these improvements, the pace of poverty reduction is far behind what is happening in East Asia, Latin American countries, apart from China, of course. And more worryingly, many privations are growing even as poverty is coming down. This is my second most important point. One of these is, of course, economic insecurities. Per capita income may grow, but economic shocks are also more frequent. This is a chart I have done of the inflation index. The RBI website shows price rise of about 70% only between 2005 and 2004 and 14 over a 10-year period. The lower rows are the prices which I recorded myself of all the food articles. They show on average at least a price rise of 250%, not 70%, 250%. And I have spoken to this tailor is called Karan. He is in Aradhak Nagar. The way globalization affected his business, and the way price rise. In fact, he said that had this PDS grain at rupees 2 per kg not been there, they would have starved. So I think the inflation claims that the state is making, my data suggests seems to have huge problem. Price rise is much more than what they are saying. There is some qualitative data. This is one of the beggars. He has a unique way. He sings Moza, he calls. This is praise of Allah while begging. He is Noor Ali, and the improvement in his life is very evident. He I've done a life sketch of his from his childhood days, and he says that they used to in Gonda, the whole family used to beg in different trains, and they would then again meet at some station in the evening, get together, and they will, and all of them were into begging. But now he has been able to take a small loan, and his children are not only studying, but one is doing a professional course. So this again is one qualitative evidence on this. These are his details. Now, why did this improvement happen? I think there are 3-4 sources. What have the people done themselves? One is family planning. There is more evidence of family planning, which is a big help for economic improvement. Second, more investment in education. Third, their adoption of technology is very important, but on this there is mixed evidence. I am still a little intrigued by the fact that the village panchayat cannot think of not only not constructing toilets, but some simple thing like dustbins which don't require any investment, or women carrying water on head. very small innovations can change this. But this suggests that there is some reluctance, but on the other hand, there are cell phones. When the benefits are very clear and the costs are not high, people do take to new innovations. Of course, green revolution happened. Now, what civil society contribution to this reduction? Very little. In Dhantala, there is no NGO, nothing. I think it's a big contrast to the situation in Gujarat or Maharashtra or Rajasthan, maybe in elsewhere in UP also. Really working NGOs must be very few. In fact, the law and order situation and the level of corruption and malfunctioning and misgovernance perhaps makes it very difficult. Even the welfare programs, Narega, etc., which is one approach that the state has been adopting towards poverty, they don't function very well in Dhantala at all. In Aradhaknagar, yes. In the Delhi case, people have already got the new, plastic PDS cards. They are getting in their bank accounts the subsidies. Also, slum dwellers, frequently tell me that one big help in Delhi is that healthcare is not at least tolerable and it is free. Hospitals you can get, which is the village I am studying doesn't have even a dispensary. One dispensary has been under construction for 7 years now, and this is the level of misgovernance and state failure. On the other hand, the major push seems to have come to improvement and rise in real wage from the growth of middle class, which was spawned by liberalization. Middle class increased the demand for services, including construction in a big way. The people employed in construction in overall Indian employment has gone up to 12% from 6 in these 20 years. This is a huge jump. No other segment has grown so much. And even rural construction is happening. Even families in Dalit families in Dhantala are getting pakka houses constructed. About hunger, I'd just like to mention that there's this huge concern that calorie intake has come down in India. See, calorie intake has come down precisely because fat intake, protein intake, and especially vegetables, cooked vegetables, this intake has gone up. So naturally in the stomach you can't have all things increasing. Your intake, your appetite has a limit, and also when mechanization has reduced the level of hard labor required on the fields, etc. Tractors and pumps. Earlier irrigation had to be through the Persian wheel, and so your calorie requirement is coming down. So naturally intake will come down, and at the same time, and it is very clear, in the rural households I found in 88 itself, many Dalit families had chapatis with chutney. Very cheap, some chili mixed with some grass, etc. Now, cooked vegetable with chapatis is much more common. So, this could be the reason for calorie intake coming down, and which is perhaps a good sign, not a bad sign. I have collected some data from, on food habits, and one important thing is that I found only 4 families which could not even purchase milk, even for tea or in Radhaknagar. Dhantala, of course, has most families which have buffaloes, except 70. In a total of 370 families, 70 don't have. But most families do use milk. Some use eggs and meat as well. Starvation, I did not find much. Stark starvation, I did not find much. About suicides, I would just like to mention suicides grew in India, especially after 2004, and especially farmer suicides. But by international comparisons, our suicide rate even today, which increased from about 8 to 11 over this period per lakh, is not very adverse. In the highest suicide rates is in South Korea. These are the data. 49 per lakh. The lowest suicide rates are in Arab countries, around 1, 2. So ideological factors, cultural factors also have. In fact, Durkheim's famous study about suicide is about saying that suicides are of various types. economic factors are not the only factor behind suicides, and one actual suicide, this happened just on 26th April in Dhantala. Now this is I've got some details on this. I'll just mention that this person's crop was destroyed in half of his field, the wheat crop, but in the rest of the field he had sugarcane. But the real reason, according to his own family, is that he was actually thrown out of a job in Delhi, and since then he was acutely depressed. But the more important thing is that when he fell to the ground from the mobile tower at 10 a.m. in the morning, around 3 p.m. in the evening he finally jumped, did not listen to his wife, etc. And what happened was that when he is lying on the ground, and meanwhile police, SHO, etc. all had come, they had very absurd statements during the period. First of all, they asked for charpoys, then they said that show him bananas, he will come down, he will feel hungry. And so villagers were a little angry, they roughed up some policemen, and after that 12 villagers have been booked under section 307, attempt to murder by the police, and they are on the run. This is the response of the state. Of course, 2 lakh rupees was paid by the local, when the local MLA came, but it is extreme misgovernance evidence. About morbidity, I'll just mention that there is a double puzzle about morbidity. First of all, life expectancy doesn't tell you about morbidity. This is very important. We can have a more ill population even if life expectancy is growing. This is what is precisely happening. We have more diabetes, we have more hypertension, lower anemia. NFHS, National Family Health Survey, has been showing increasing anemia, especially among women, despite more incomes. And I also found in my own field, this was a medical camp we held, these problems are growing. I use a novel method to count has diabetes, etc. grown over time. Now the second puzzle about morbidity is that reported morbidity is in fact more in richer countries and better off states. Kerala's reported morbidity is 200 per 1000, whereas in Bihar and UP it is 2. In USA also it is very high, much higher than the poor countries. So reported morbidity, like FIRs, is no index for understanding health. What could be, I asked the population, did you have a heart attack? Because that is not forgotten, or a brain stroke, or a kidney failure across last 3 generations. And this is the data. There is tripling of these problems in the youngest generation as compared to the oldest. So my main findings are that there are, even if poverty is coming down, there are many privations that are growing. They need to be attended to, and my suggestion is that district wise, or at least at the sub-state level, in district clusters, we must have centers which keep a track on these privations, index them, and so that the voter is alerted because these are largely related to misgovernance, and civil society can keep track, and also better policies can be designed. Thank you.